Welcome to the family meeting. Here we get an opportunity to come together with extended family members and those connected by blood or friendship, shared humanity, to explore the profound importance of family in our lives and share some heartfelt stories, talk about our challenges and our victories. And at the heart of our conversation is one simple but powerful truth, and that is that we are all part of the same human family. And the more deeply we understand and embrace that reality, the better life will be on planet Earth. And with that said, I have the rare opportunity to be in the room with, I think we've known each other since high school. I believe Lucretia Bullock. How you doing, Lucretia?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic and I'm getting better.
Very good.
Well, has it been that long? Has it been decades upon decades upon decades since you and I have known each other? In
It
fact,
certainly has. It was probably earlier than that. Maybe you started high school a year earlier than I did. We didn't go to the same high school, but we were from the same neighborhood. So,
right, right. And I
yeah.
recall that your brother and my sister got together and created a beautiful baby girl by the name of Shantae, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That was the first introduction there
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they got together.
And now Shantae is actually the treasurer in our family meeting. So she collects all the money, right? That's
Oh,
what
wow.
she does.
Okay.
But can,
Excellent.
can you tell me what you do? Kind of introduce yourself. Tell us about who you are and what do you do, Lucretia?
Okay, well, thanks so much, Bobby, for having me. Would you prefer that I call you Bobby or
You can
Robert?
call me anything you want to call me. You know enough to you call me Bob if you want to. I don't mind.
All right, all right. So, yeah, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for including me among all of your many guests. I appreciate that opportunity. Let's see. So, I hail originally from Chicago, west side of Chicago,
What
as
toy?
hmm?
What's toy?
West side. So yeah. Let's see. So from the west side of Chicago, I managed to attend school at the University of Illinois down in Champaign and went from there to so many other places, met and married, someone I met down there in Champaign and kind of moved all over the place as a result of that marriage and did any number of jobs because of all the mobility within that.
Mm,
But for many years, I was a flight attendant for
mm,
what used to be a well-known airline, Pan Am, long
mm-hmm,
since gone, and
mm-hmm.
went from there to studying interior design. So I had my own design firm in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, in the DMV, D.C.,
Okay.
Maryland, Virginia area. I have done so many other things. I've also worked for the research arm of the National Medical Association.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
with all the traveling that you were doing as flight attendant, I'm quite sure you've seen all the things all over the world. What is one of the most fascinating locations that you've had the privilege to grace?
Hmm. Well, I pride myself on being able to say that I have been able to hit five of the seven continents. So
Mm,
as you can imagine, you'd see some really exciting and exotic places. So
mm,
from Tahiti to Dubai and
mm,
all in between, I've been able to see some really amazing places, meeting some amazing people and having some really exciting experiences.
mm. Interesting. Now, what inspired you to kind of move in that direction? I mean, out of the multitude of things you could do with the free time that you had, what made you
Yeah.
decide to pursue that
Yeah.
path?
Well, as a kid, we were bused. I think you were too. Were you bused?
Yeah.
Okay, so was bused outside of our community and would hear all of these kids talking about how they were going to Indiana and
Mm,
Wisconsin and all of those places. And of course, I didn't know anything initially about those places, didn't really realize that they were right in my backyard.
mm,
Um, but between that and having family members in the service,
mm,
let's see, between the Air Force and the Army,
mm.
and being in Germany and, kind of all over Europe, I decided, you know what, travel sounds really interesting.
Mm,
And certainly the European location sounded so much more interesting than Wisconsin and
mm-hmm.
Indiana. And so that was something that I aspired to do. So in high school, I made it a point to learn a second language, which was Spanish. And
Nice.
so in high school, I studied Spanish, and in college, I studied Spanish, and which is how I got my foot in the door with the airlines because I
Mm.
was able to pass the Spanish language test, which was a requirement back then that you have at
Interesting.
least one additional language.
Mm. Well, tell me this, Lucretia. What has been some of the greatest challenges you faced over the course of your life experience? Please,
Hmm.
please elaborate on that.
You know what? I used to say that I really didn't have a testimony, so to speak. I really had a kind of cushy life as a kid, as an adult, as a teen. I really had a cushy life. And so my, I guess, greatest challenge came as an adult just a few
Mm.
years ago,
Mm.
as I realized that I had developed some sort of rare disorder.
Mm.
And that, I guess, has been my greatest challenge is dealing with that disorder. But up until that point, I thought I had it made in the shade.
Mm. You know, at one point, I had an opportunity to visit with you when I came to Chicago to see my mom, and
Mhm.
you were going through your situation. Can you elaborate on that situation and give us some details about what happened in that scenario?
Absolutely. So in 2020, in the height of, I guess, COVID was going on and other things were going on. I decided, after being married and then being divorced, I decided, okay, it was time for me to buy my own home. And so I decided Indiana was a good place to purchase. And so I bought my home in like the beginning of 2020. And March of 2020. And by June or July of 2020, I started having some what I thought was just kind of old age issues.
Mm.
I started when I walked, I would start tripping. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm getting pretty clumsy here. And so then the tripping went to falling. I was
Mm.
stumbling and then I started falling and I was like, what is going on with me? I am really pretty clumsy. But then it kept going and then my balance became a problem.
Mm.
And so I thought it was time to seek medical attention. And so I started out talking to acupuncturists and going
Mm.
through that. And then some chiropractic, thinking, well, maybe there was a problem with my spine or something like that. And then it went from that to seeking medical attention and having tests done to try to make a determination as to what was going on, because it really truly just exacerbated. It went, like I said, from the one thing to the next, and it really got worse as I went along. And so I was being told any number of things that could be the problem, and nothing was really helping.
Mm.
So I decided, having the background, having worked for the national research arm of the National Medical Association, decided to do some research of my own on my
Mm.
condition. And
Mm.
in doing so, I discovered the Mayo Clinic.
Mm.
And the Mayo Clinic happened to have some studies going on. And some of them, a couple of them, sounded like it could have been related to what I was going through.
Mm.
And so I
Interesting.
decided that I was going to write to the Mayo Clinic and explain to them from top to bottom what was going on with me and my situation, coming from a relatively healthy person without
Hmm.
really any medical issues to all of a sudden I've got these things going on with the tripping and the stumbling and the falling
Mm.
that soon escalated to me not being able to move my legs and not
Mm.
having strength in my legs, and then my legs feeling like they were about 100 pounds apiece.
Mm.
And so really losing my mobility
Hmm.
completely.
Wow. Over what period of time did this transpire?
This was, again, it started like in July. By June or July is when the stumbling started. And by the end of the year, I was literally bedridden
Mm.
and in a wheelchair. and unable to, as I said, stand. And certainly if you can't stand, you can't walk, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it had gotten, gone from one step to the next and relatively quickly. And so by February of 21, I received a call from the Mayo Clinic saying,
Mm-hmm.
we'd like to see you in Rochester, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. I went to Rochester and they ran a series of tests on me that very first day. And in that very first meeting with all of those tests that they had run, they were able to put a name to what it was that I was going through. And that name is called, it's an acronym called POEMS,
Mm-hmm.
POEMS. The P is for polyneuropathy, which means that it had attacked my nerves in my feet, in my legs, in my hands. And this is why I was stumbling and then falling,
Mm-hmm.
because my nerves just weren't cooperating with the rest of my body. My
Mm-hmm.
brain might have been telling it to do one thing, telling my legs and feet to do one thing, but my nerves had a different agenda altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And so the O in poems is for organomegaly, meaning that your organs can be attacked. And
Mm-hmm.
perhaps everyone who's going through this thing may not suffer all of the same consequences. But for me, apparently, it did affect my organs. And so I was told with all of these tests that I was doing that I had at some point had a massive heart attack. The
Whoa.
Widowmaker, as they call it, is
Whoa.
what I was told. And
Wow.
believe it or not, I was totally unaware of
Mm,
the fact
mm,
that I had had this massive heart attack and certainly could have died. When I look back to try to figure out when might this have happened, I do recall a time when I was in Texas visiting my sister, and I was having these horrible chest pains, and I was on the floor,
mm,
and clutching my chest and everything. But I thought because I had previously been diagnosed with what is it? Indigestion or whatever, you kind
mm,
of gastroenteritis, something like that. That makes it sound like you just have a lot of
mm,
gas in your chest and that kind of thing. And
mm,
so I just assumed, okay, this is a really bad bout of that. And so
mm,
I carried on. I managed. I got through it. It was very painful, but I got through it. Thank God I got
mm,
through it. Um, and so that was one of the ways that it had attacked my organs
mm,
by way of my heart. The
mm,
E in poems, POEMS, the E is for endocrinopathy, meaning that it can cause things such as diabetes, which
mm,
is what it did for me. I didn't have diabetes before, had never been diagnosed with diabetes at all. But that was one of the byproducts of the
mm,
disorder. M is monoclonal proteins, and that's more complicated to explain.
mm,
But that was part of it, but a very small part of it, for me and
mm,
my situation. And then S is for skin disorders. And so my skin started to change. I really got really dark.
mm.
Insides of the palm of my hands were just absolutely black, as
Wow.
were my feet. The bottoms of my feet were black, and then my skin tone altogether became increasingly darker. So
Mm.
it wreaked some havoc on my body and did a real number on me.
So for over a period of how many years was this taking place?
This was a 2-year period. So it started in 2020. I discovered the Mayo Clinic, and at the end of 2020, they invited me to Rochester in 2021. And then it was a 2-year period dealing with it all, with medication and testing and all of those things. So I
Mm,
guess when I say 2 years, I mean the treatment was a 2-year period,
mm,
but the going through it was 2020 to 2023 or so,
mm.
you know.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, I know I saw you at my mom's funeral and you were walking quite gracefully. So obviously something transpired. So tell us, what has been some of your greatest discovery? It may be related to that or anything that you want to share, but what have been some of the greatest discoveries you made over the course of your
Okay,
experience?
so what they determined was that I needed a couple of treatments. So I needed chemotherapy to deal with some of the things that were going on in my body. There was a bit of cancer that they determined, and so they needed to treat that with some high level chemotherapy, not for a very long period of time, but a couple of high level dosages of
Mm,
chemotherapy. And then also I had a stem cell transplant, which
wow.
means that they went into my body, removed my own stem cells, took them out, cleaned them up, and put them back and put them
Mm,
back.
mm,
So, and that was a couple of days of, a process that took a few days for them to, one, take the stem cells out, two, clean the cells, and then put them right back in my body.
mm.
And so in doing, and of course, a series of different medications and things like that in addition. And so given those things, given the physical therapy that I had to go through to try to eliminate, alleviate, improve my
Mm,
condition, all of those things were done. And certainly the mind is a wonderful thing. The body is another wonderful, instrument, and you just
wow.
have to make them work in accord, get your mind together with your body. You will your body to do things. Your mind tells, your heart, first of all,
Mm-hmm,
tells your mind that you don't want to go through this process
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and you don't want to live the rest of your life kind of being an invalid, because truly
mm-hmm,
the impact of all those things that I told you was that I could not walk at all. I was
mm-hmm,
in a wheelchair. My legs were so heavy that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift them. My feet would not behave the way they ordinarily do.
mm-hmm,
We had little piggies, this little piggy, and we had no idea that if those little piggies don't work the way they
mm-hmm,
should, then that means you're not going to be walking, you're going to be falling. And so that
mm-hmm,
was what was going on. And I didn't understand that from the
mm-hmm,
onset. But I figured that out later. My toes weren't curling to get that traction,
mm-hmm,
on the floor to make my feet kind of go up and down. My ankle wasn't doing that little ankle action where your
mm-hmm,
ankle pull your feet back, your toes lift off the floor, and that gives you that clearance to walk without the tripping and the
mm-hmm,
stumbling and those things. So truly it was just a multitude of scourges on my body that prevented
mm-hmm,
me from all of my normal activities and the movement as I knew it, and I used to be like a gym rat. I was always in the
mm-hmm,
gym. 3 o'clock in the morning, I'd be in
mm-hmm,
the gym,
mm-hmm.
and, riding a bike or doing something, walking for miles and all of those things. And then all of a sudden I was unable to do all of that. But again, that mind over matter thing kind of kicked in for me because I was in my 50s and I just thought, I am not ready to go out like this. This is not going to be the end, how my life ends. I've had such a wonderful life, an active life, a well-traveled life. And I felt really good about, where I was going, where I had been. And I certainly didn't want any of that to end. And so I just kept moving and making sure that my heart was communicating with the head and my head was communicating with my body, because I just could not see that being the end of
Wow.
my story.
Wow. When I hear you say it, it is amazing because recently when I had a family meeting, we talked about, how we live in the quantum field and we have the ability to create reality, but it requires there to be harmony between the heart and the head, and that the electric pulse that the mind sends out when we have an intention actually activates some things, and then in our heart creates a magnetic pull to bring those realities into our experience. So you say that you went through a situation so devastating that you completely bedridden, but yet in your inner world, you made some decisions that said, okay, you know what? That's not who I'm gonna be. And it didn't just automatically, magically happen, but it led to a series of discoveries and research and connections, serendipities, synchronicities. And here you are walking as gracefully as when you were young. I mean, that is a miraculous story, but it's physics.
It's so many things. It's faith, it's
Mm-hmm.
whatever higher power. Some people might call it the universe, some people might name
Mm,
it God, it is having that faith that you are not alone in whatever journey that you are, embarking on. And I
mm-hmm.
felt like I was not alone, and I was understanding that my higher power was also energizing me and
Mm-hmm.
encouraging me along with all of the other people around me.
Wow. Wow.
So it's what life is a series of choices, of knowledge that we provide to ourselves, of wills,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
activating the will in our body, and certainly organizing all of those things together, your faith, your will, your strength,
Mm-hmm.
wherever it comes from.
Let me ask you this, Lucretia. What, where do you see yourself going from here? Now, I know you recently bounced from the States, but tell us about that. That
Yeah,
is amazing.
yeah,
Please
yeah.
elaborate on that a little bit.
I did, I have, because I have traveled kind of all over the place, and sometimes, I was in places alone and by myself, and I managed. I
Mm-hmm.
remember being in Tokyo, and I was with a group of other folks that I didn't necessarily get along with, but I had a 5-day stay, and I was not
Mm-hmm.
going to allow the fact that I did not have companionship to allow me to see a place that I had never been before, and
Mm-hmm.
then just sit in my room and ignore all of the lessons, all of the food, all of the things that I could figure out and learn by way of being in this location. And so I got myself a map in Japanese and one in English. And I was all over the train system and all over Tokyo and,
Wow.
doing all of those things. I was, what, 21, 22 years old at the
Mm-hmm.
time. And I just thought, okay, I'm not going to let anybody, stop what it is that I want to do in my progress. And so, kind of the same thing with Panama. It's kind of unusual to think that a single woman could just pick up and pack up and move to
Mm-hmm.
a different country. I had been to Panama, but it was many years, before. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I started thinking about, okay, what do I want to do with myself? What do I want to do with my life? What kind of peace is it that I'm in search of? And where might
Mm-hmm.
I be able to find it? I started doing research and discovered Panama, rediscovered Panama.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 2023, I came back to Panama and I spent a couple of weeks and I enjoyed it. I liked it, except it is super hot.
Mm-hmm.
I had lived in Arizona before and in Miami before, and all of those places are hot. In Arizona, they say it's so hot, but it's dry heat, so it's manageable. No, hot is
Mm-hmm.
hot,
Hot, hot.
Same for Florida. Hot is hot with all of the humidity. And so that same kind of humidity exists in Panama, which is
Mm,
difficult, especially for a middle-aged woman going through hot flashes.
mm, mm,
It's a thing. The heat is real.
mhm,
But despite that, I decided I like it as a place. So a number of things exist in Panama. Really good people live
mm,
here in Panama and are from Panama. And I felt comfort and a safety being able to come to Panama. So that was number one. They also have an excellent healthcare system here in
mm,
Panama, and it's very affordable relative to the US. So
mm,
that was number two, given, my situation and where I had come from, and, the capacity to be able to seek attention when I needed it and to also be able to afford it
mhm,
was an issue. So the people, the healthcare, the environment. I
mm,
am sitting in my apartment right now. I'm looking at the Caribbean. Uh,
mm.
It's, every morning I wake up, I don't even bother closing my shades. I
Mm,
just leave the windows open. That's what I go to bed to at night, the twinkling of the stars, and I wake up
mm.
to the same.
Oh, wow. That must be
So
beautiful. Must be.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm,
So it's well worth it to me. The affordability as well to live in Panama. It's
mhm,
very affordable, again, relative to the US, both housing, food,
mhm,
all of those um aspects of,
mhm,
all those things that people consider when they're thinking about moving. And so it had a lot of those things, which was calling my name. It was someplace that, again, I could feel safe being a single woman in a
mhm,
place like Panama. And
mhm,
so I came back in 2024. Oh, one of the other things is that it's easy to get a visa,
mhm,
especially if you're 55 or older. You can get
mhm,
they call it a pensionado visa. So it's
mhm.
for retired people.
Okay.
Or, yeah, and if you work, if you are on the gig economy and you can work from home or whatever, then it's also, a
Mhm,
good option for you.
mhm,
So all of those things played a big part in my choice to come to Panama.
mhm,
And I have been here for a little over 2 months now and
mhm,
very happy that I did it.
mhm. Amazing. Tell us a little bit about your family in terms of you've had a rather large family. Tell us what do
I
you
did.
your family do to support each other, to encourage each other, or do you do anything? What do you do with your family?
Well, I came from a very large family. There were nine of us. I was the
Mm,
youngest of the nine. And so of course, through unfortunately painful deaths, there are just a few of us now. So I
mm,
have three surviving sisters, which means there are four girls instead of five now.
mm,
And then one of my brothers has survived. And so three of
mm,
my brothers have gone on.
mm,
And so we all still communicate via phone, not like you guys do with these family meetings and things
mm,
like that, but we all communicate with each other. And my eldest living sister communicates with everyone on a
mm,
regular basis. And so she keeps everybody apprised
mm.
of what we're all doing.
Right,
So
right,
you
right.
tell her, then, she gets on the wire.
Mm-hmm. It's
And
all
before you
it's
know it,
all on the
right.
broadcast.
Exactly, exactly. With my mother, it used to be tell mom, telegram,
Hmm.
telegram, tell a mom. But now it's my sister. She's the telegram, the modern day
Wow.
telegram.
Wow. Well, one of the reasons why I began this process because I fully believe that there's so much wisdom, so much experience, and so much value that we hold as individuals and in these relationships, having the ability to have an impact upon generations that are yet unborn, like many people have impacted our experience. If you could share something that you believe would be of benefit to the future generations that's important to
Hmm.
you, what would it be that you would share?
Hmm. I think that one of the things that I would say, and one of the things that I've always said to my children, is to figure out what happy is to them,
Mm,
not relative to what
I
mom and
like that.
dad are telling them to do, but what is it that makes their heart sing? What is
Mm,
it that makes them happy to be doing whatever it is?
mhm,
And so I think that is like the biggest thing that you can do, because people can say, hey, you really should be an attorney, and they can steer
mhm.
you to becoming an attorney.
Right.
And you get to, I know someone who was an attorney for a few years and now she's a school teacher. You know,
Mm,
she was an attorney. She spent all the time, the energy, the effort, the money to go to law school, but her passion was teaching. And that
mm.
has been what she has done for the better of perhaps 30 years or more.
That's very good because it's one of the things that I see that's a kind of common thread in these conversations. Everybody has a jewel of great value. And that word, what does happy mean to you? For you, what does happy look like? I
Hmm.
think that is profound. Oh man, that's good. Let me ask you this. If you could say something to my family, because you know many of my family members, if there's
Hmm.
something that you could share with them that you think would be of a benefit or an asset to them,
Hmm.
what would that be?
Hmm. Um, that would be looking into it kind of surrounds the same thing, finding you're happy, but looking into yourself
Mm,
and making your discoveries about yourself and being content with who it is that you are.
mm,
Again, people can steer us in all different directions, but if you are not happy with self,
mm,
then that could create a whole big downfall for a
mm,
time, either a time or for a lifetime, a short time or for a lifetime. So
mm.
everybody needs to look into themselves and discover who they are
Wow.
and then work toward being more of who they are, whether it
Mm,
makes everybody else comfortable or not, whether it makes everybody else happy or not.
mm,
Be who you are, accept yourself for who you are,
mm,
and the mistakes that you make. We all, make those
mm.
mistakes. We all go through our trials and tribulations. We all look back on our lives, each and every one of us, and say, would have, could have, should have. I wish I had known. You
Touche,
know?
touche. We there. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
well, how if somebody were wanting to get in touch with you, is there a possibility
Mhm.
that people could reach out to you? Where can they find you on Instagram or
Um,
Facebook or
You know what?
LinkedIn
I
or
guess
what?
I'm
What?
on Instagram. I
Are
guess
you?
I'm
You
on
have no idea.
Instagram, but I don't, I know that I am, but I don't utilize it that way.
Okay.
I don't post anything, but I follow my daughter. I used to troll my son until he kicked me off. So,
Uh,
so
so I
I
know
guess I could be, pardon?
some of my family members may want to reach out to you because
Uh-huh,
what
uh-huh.
this is what I've seen. Some of the people that have been sharing, there's stuff that they share was so stirring, so profound, so
Mhm.
inspiring. They wanted to say thank you. Like, oh,
Sure,
I needed
sure.
that jewel. I needed that nugget. Right. So
Yeah.
if they
Well,
can
I'm
reach
on
out to you,
Facebook.
okay.
Yeah, I'm on Facebook and you have my number. And if they're a family member of yours, we already know Shantae's a family member of mine, but if they're a family member of yours and Shantae's, then therefore they're a family member of mine.
That's
So
right. That's
I'm
right. That's right.
available.
I love it. I love it. I want you to know how grateful I am for you taking out this opportunity. I mentioned to you that as I started thinking about some of the people who I have found to be fascinating in my life experience, that I would say, hey, this is somebody that I believe has great value to share with my family. Because I'm not just interviewing folks walking down the street kind of thing. I'm
Mhm.
talking to people who I believe got some stuff together because I know that you have value. And you were one of the first women that I thought about because of our experience and knowing your journey, right? Is phenomenal what you've gone through, and yet you still here. It's still expanding now in Panama. So I want you to know how grateful I am for you taking out this time to share with me and my family during this session. If there were any closing remarks or words that you would have to share, what would it be?
I guess my closing remarks would be, one, I want to thank you, for offering this opportunity to me. And I really hope that my story, along with all of your other people that you've interviewed, I hope that there is a nugget or two that someone can glean from this conversation. And I would certainly be more than happy to assist in any way, or to talk, or to console, or to whatever it might be. Just let them know that I am available. I'm a very social person, and someone's always calling me or hitting me up for one thing or
Uh,
another.
uh,
I'm always there to talk. I think on Facebook one time I said, if anybody out there needs to talk to someone, give me a call, DM me. I am available because we all could use
mm-hmm,
someone at some
mm-hmm,
time, and maybe that someone is not a family member, maybe that someone is not a personal friend, but maybe
right.
that's someone who is a bit more removed from, your situation, from your life or whatever, and perhaps they might be able to assist and give you some sort of advice or information or help in one way or another. So that would be what I would leave them with. Use me as a resource. I have I know how to research if I don't know myself. That's one
Yes,
of the
yes,
things I
yes, you
did. I'm
do.
a researcher. So just, I'm available. I'm
Thank you.
available.
Thank you so much, Lucretia. That's it for
Sure.
today's family meet. All right.